Got your water, you ready?
Ready to go.
Thanks for joining us once again. I know you're sick of questions about Donald Trump, so I thought I'd start with that.
I've got practice at seamlessly segueing into...
Let's see what segues. I'm worried about your segues today. Are you more confident after Penny Wong's meeting with Marco Rubio you'll get this one-on-one meeting? And perhaps more importantly, even if you did, does it make a difference on things like tariffs and AUKUS?
Well, of course we will have meetings. There'll be a range of meetings between now and the end of the year with President Trump. Where all members of various forums, of course, Australia and the United States, so that will occur. But I'm confident as well that we will be constructive. But we know that no country has a better tariff, if you like, level than 10%. Now, we'll continue to put our case as we do, as I did with Secretary Bessent and Jamieson Greer and others on the sidelines of the G7 in Canada. Penny Wong was able to have a really constructive meeting with Marco Rubio as part of the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting this week. We continue to be engaged with our American friends, but they have a different position on tariffs. I have said that's an act of economic self-harm. I stick to that. I have a different view about the economy and about trade. And the concern for Australia isn't, if you look at what the impact has been so far, our beef exports are up. Our exports in a range of other products are up as well. Lamb's down a little bit. Steel and aluminium have been impacted, but not hugely. We are in a position where, on July 9, that won't really have an impact on us because that's about other countries who have higher rates overnight.
We won't get a letter on July 9? We won't get a determination?
Well, we're on 10%.
That's what we're going to stay on after next week?
Well, I assume that will be the case. The United States...
What about the steel? Do we see any...
No, well, we will continue to put our case. But bear in mind that during the first Trump administration, it took some period of time for change to occur then as well. We'll continue to put forward our argument. There aren't new steel plants have appeared since either January 20 or April. All that's happening is that the purchases of Australian products and indeed products from around the world are more expensive for the American purchases of those products.
But you have this conversation with Trump where he says, and he comes out later and says, I'll give great consideration to a change on steel, and then they don't deliver it. Is Peter Navarro the problem there, do you think?
Oh, I'm not going to get into the personalities, but...
you must have been disappointed when he didn't.
Well, we did have a constructive discussion, but President Trump, of course, made a decision that's consistent with his public comments. When you
Except for that one.
No, well, when you're negotiating with someone, he did say that, but he has also said that there's no more beautiful word in the English language than tariff. Now, we have a different view. That wouldn't even be not in my to quote top 10 lists of all the thing at the moment in the odds this morning. That wouldn't be in my top million of words.
Could he pull the rug on AUKUS, or could he charge us more for AUKUS, or could he say you'll get less subs than the deal says?
Look, AUKUS is a good deal for Australia and it's a good deal for the United States. We are contributing to the industrial capacity in the United States right now. We need to, I think, be really proud of ourselves. It's one of the themes I hope came through in the speech there. I'll be speaking about our contribution. When it comes to defence and national security, we're not people who don't pay our way.
Do you fear he could pull the rug on it?
Well, I think that President Trump will know everything that he has said. He said nothing negative about AUKUS, nor have other people, including Marco Rubio, this week.
All right, so we're at the G7, I'm there with you, and you do a press conference where you're talking about what you're going to say to Donald Trump, you're about to meet him, you've consulted Greg Norman. Then half an hour later we get a tweet from Caroline Levitt saying Donald Trump is leaving the G7 after dinner. So your officials aren't told, you're not told, well, you're told by Twitter. And after that...
I had you there to tell me.
Well, I did tell one of the departmental staff, I'll never forget the look on his face. Anyway, look... Trump then has a telephone conversation with Narendra Modi. He has one with the Mexican president. He invites Modi to the White House. We're right there. Is there something wrong here? Where's your phone call from Donald Trump in that sense?
I've had three. I've had three.
But isn't it just courteous of him not to call you?
I'm not worried by someone making an understandable decision, which he did, to return to Washington. And one of the things that we've got to do, Andrew, and if you compare it with some media overseas, is we've got to stop talking Australia down and look for, this is a decision by the United States. The Australian government haven't made a decision about tariffs. We're not imposing any, we're not replicating. You know, we speak about reciprocal tariffs. We're not making a difference there either. And the relationship between Australia and US officials, we have people when it comes to AUKUS. There's over 60 people currently in Hawaii working essentially through our naval personnel, getting those skills. We have people in the United States. I've been on the Hawaii sub when it was in Western Australia. There was an Australian submariner working on that. Like, we're getting on with things, and we need to, I think, talk Australia up.
All right, that's fair
about what we contribute in defence and security, what we contribute in our region.
Understand, but
is pretty unique.
Let me put this to you. Is the problem Kevin Rudd? I mean, he basically called him a traitor to the West, a village idiot, the most destructive president in history. Dan Scavino, one of Trump's staffers, put on that hourglass. A Trump pollster, Brett Buchanan, tells Laura Jays on air the other day that the president doesn't like the ambassador.
A Trump pollster from the election before last and the one before that.
I think...
You know, so...
Yeah, but is there something to this, you know? Is there fire where there's smoke?
No.
So the administration's told you they've got no problem with Kevin Rudd, despite what he said?
Yeah, it's been very positive, and he's had meetings, and when I went to the US, the connections that Kevin Rudd has, as much as people might be have had a view about Kevin over a period of time, no one could doubt his capacity, his hard work, his ability to work strongly. The discussions that I've had have been very positive, nothing but positive in comments that have been made to me.
So he's not a bar to any phone call, any meeting, anything?
No.
Okay.
No.
Let me move on to the productivity roundtable, the big theme of your speech then. Now...
And no American political person would talk down the US ambassador to Australia. I make that point.
What if a US ambassador had called you a bunch of nasty names? Would you be inclined to...
Well, JD Vance had some things to say too. He's now Vice President of the United States of America.
Okay. This productivity roundtable, you never promised this before the election. Did you intend before the election to call this, or is this because you've got this huge number of seats now? So you say, well, now I can actually do reform.
No, well, before the election, we had a pretty ambitious agenda that we put to the Australian people. It wasn't something we developed during the election campaign. It's consistent, what we said, with what the speech I gave here last year and the speech I gave the year before. We have a view going forward that we've been taking every opportunity to outline. Last year, of course, so the primary concern was about inflation, and the primary concern of punters, of voters, of listeners and viewers or readers was cost of living. Now, that's still front and centre. I've got to tell you, on July 1, the concern that Australians had wasn't over who met whom where. It's paid parental leave, it's their wages going up, it's the tax they pay, It's whether their kids will be able to afford a home. They're the issues that we want to concentrate on. And my government has been laser-like focused on that, and we were during the election campaign and the lead-up, and in discussions that we had, both on air and outside. I would have said that to you, and why I was confident about an outcome, because I thought that only one side of politics was talking about things that mattered to people. And so the agenda going forward on productivity is an opportunity early in a term to bring people together from business, civil society. We've invited the opposition to participate as well, and have a discussion about things that aren't immediate, aren't about the 24-hour media cycle, they're not about the next week or even the next year. It's how does Australia position ourselves for future growth, and part of that has to be productivity. And when you have productivity which is basically flatlined for decades, you know, isn't something that's emerged just since we came to government. It's been there for a long time. We want to open up dialogue for discussion, just as in the first term we had a Jobs and Skills Summit that led to the creation of the Jobs and Skills body that makes those recommendations and involves the private sector. We want to have dialogue, and we think it's a useful time early in the term.
You mentioned tax reform in your speech.
Yeah.
Are you open to raising the GST and lowering income tax?
Well, one of the things that we're trying to avoid is just that question.
You brought it on the agenda, though.
No. What we're trying to do is to have an adult conversation. And what has occurred over a long period of time is that people, you know, is it on my agenda? No, it's not. Okay?
Would you consider it?
No. But one of the things we're trying to do is to not say we're going to have this forum and people are entitled to come along and have ideas, but at the very beginning we're going to do interviews between now and August where we get asked by you and others to rule things in or out.
I'm not asking you to rule it out.
Yes, you are.
I'm asking if you'll consider it.
Yes, you are. People are entitled to put forward whatever they want to put forward.
What's your instinct about it?
It's not well, you can ask it different ways, but it's the same question, Andrew. And it's the same headline that you're looking for. And what I want is a mature...
I'm actually curious, as is the audience, I'm sure, of what your view is about increasing the GST and lowering income tax.
Well, no, it's not something that we have given any consideration to. But if people want to put forward ideas, we're not saying these are the conditions, you know, you can put them up. We, of course, will take into account the response. I mean, I'm a supporter of progressive taxation. Consumption taxes, by definition, are regressive in their nature. So that's something that, you know, doesn't fit with the agenda. But people are entitled to put things up. And this will not succeed if we have the next month being asked day after day after day what are effectively, as much as you put it very politely and skillfully, essentially asking for, you know, headlines to be written of Labor open to considering XXX.
Well, let's see what else you're
And then what happens on day two is we rule it out.
Would you like...
So if we want to go down that track, we can.
But let me just ask you two principles here.
Yep.
Would you like to see lower income tax in this country, including for the top rate?
I always want to see income taxes as low as possible and wages as high as possible.
Including the top marginal rate?
Well, we're the first government to reduce the top marginal rate. We increased that threshold.
Paul Keating did.
No, in recent times. Paul Keating was last century. This century...
Showing my age.
This century, we are the first government to change the top rate in a long period of time.
Did you change it again?
The Conservatives were there for 10 years. They didn't do anything about it. We lifted it from 180 to 190 so that when we changed stage 3, something that was, you know, we didn't envisage, we would go to when we went to the 2022 election. We didn't envisage that we would change it. I was fair dinkum about that. Circumstances, with the cost of living, with the pressures that we're on, with inflation, meant that I think it was a responsible thing to do. We did it. They said, our opponents said they would oppose it and we should go to an election on it before they voted for it. And now no one that I've seen comment for a long period of time says we did the wrong thing.
Would you like to see lower company tax in Australia?
I want to see taxes. Of course I want to see taxes as low as possible, consistent with providing appropriate services and consistent with the overall macroeconomic interests of the country being looked after. So I'm not going to play the what is effectively, you're inviting me to do, the sort of rule in, rule out game. You can look at our record of what we have done, which was when we made that stage 3 change. One of the things that was argued for was that we should not have that tax decrease at the top end and just put it back into revenue, put it back into consolidated revenue. What we did, there was $106 billion of tax cuts were envisaged under stage 3. Our changes were worth $107 billion, but they meant that people didn't get left behind because we made sure right through the thresholds. Sure. And at the last election, I remind you, there's only one political party that went to the election arguing for lower taxes, sure, and that was the one that I led.
All right, you know, you talk about tax reform. What about some spending reform? I mean, the NDIS is pushing past $50 billion. It's projected to cost $64 billion. It's the third highest cost in the budget. Are you happy with the situation where 11% of 6-year-olds and 15% of Australian 6-year-old boys are on the NDIS?
No, I'm not.
Is it time to take kids with mild autism off the NDIS?
No, I'm not. And one of the things that we've been trying to do is to make the system more sustainable. It had been allowed to just drift over the 3 terms of the former government. My government intervened, credit where credit's due. Bill Shorten and credit where credit's due. The opposition supported the reforms that we put in place.
Will you have another go at it?
We will always look for spending to produce better value, because if the NDIS, had we not done that reform, our concern is that the vision of the NDIS is a great one. It's one we should be really proud of as Australians, of looking after people so that they benefit, but importantly as well, the whole society benefits if people can fully participate, including the economy. And we need to make sure that it is made more sustainable. We are working through the reform issues as well with state and territory governments, because it certainly, the vision of the NDIS wasn't that those sort of numbers that you just quoted go on the system. And when you have well over 500,000 Australians on the NDIS, but you've got to be responsible about how you do it and work through with the sector, because it's very easy for vulnerable people to feel like their support is threatened. We don't want that. People who need the NDIS need to keep it, but also there were massive rorts in the system. That's the truth.
Let me ask, because this is one of the themes again of your speech about business taking over, where we've had a real kind of surge of government, state and federal spending, creating jobs. The AI Group, Australian Institute Group, recently analysed data and found that in 2024 the Australian economy added 410,000 jobs, 148,000 were in the public sector. Another 209,000 were in what you could call the non-market sector, so health, education, things involving government funding. Only 53,000, or about 13%, were in the private market sector. This tells a tale of a bit of a sick economy in the private sector, doesn't it?
There's a range of different figures have been used from time to time, and in order to tell a story to back up something that people want to argue for. The truth is that overwhelmingly a majority of the jobs that were created in the last term were not government jobs. But it's true that there has been a growth in areas like the NDIS, as well as aged care. We've put a promise that we made in the 2022 election that I'm really proud of delivering, was putting nurses back into nursing homes. And now there is a nurse present 99% of the time in our aged care homes. Now, that's a good thing that we have done that. It's a good thing in terms of getting higher ratios of care to people to enjoy that dignity and respect in their later years.
But your IR reforms and your renewable energy target, when you talk about stripping away regulation, I guess they're examples of the hand of government making it harder for business. Would you concede?
No, I think that paying people fairly actually assists business. I think that the reforms that we've put in place there have been sensible reforms going forward. I'm proud of the fact that real wages have risen now 7 quarters in a row, and prior to us coming to office, they were falling. One of the things, if you look at the United States and you look at what's happened to the political system there, the disruption that occurs, it's a very divided society. And if you look at areas of, the Rust Belt states, as they're called, with the decline of manufacturing, are feeling like people don't have a stake in the system. One of the things that we have the opportunity to do in Australia, and what my government is laser-like focused on, is making sure that people don't feel like they're left behind, that they don't have that stake. That's why we need to make more things here. That's why blue-collar work matters. That's why my government intervenes from Whyalla to salmon to a range of areas as well. A Labor government will always support jobs and will support people having a stake in society, and we don't make apologies for that. We think that importantly can assist business rather than a sort of race to the bottom.
We're out of time, but allow me 2 more. Are you minded to make any changes to the superannuation tax proposal on accounts of more than $3 million? Are you minded to alter that at all? There have been a few other proposals around.
Well, proposals around, but the proposal that was put forward, we put forward in the last term, would affect just a very small number. 0.5%.
So you're keeping it on unrealised gains and the rest?
0.5% of people were impacted by that.
You're not minded to change it?
Well, we went to an election on it, and we have, as I said, half a percent of the population are impacted by it.
And finally, I have to say after this discussion, I've still got an eyebrow raised about the productivity roundtable and what we're actually going to see about it, whether it's going to be bold reform.
That's the point, Andrew, though. The point of a productivity roundtable is not to have it preempted, not even on Sky News, a month before it takes place.
Is this because you've often had a philosophy to the left? You've probably been more centrist than people would have thought as Prime Minister. But
people haven't been paying attention if they think that.
Is this you going to a Hawke-Keating type era of government in the Albanese government?
I think that is the way that I have always governed and the way that I sought to govern and what I put forward from the day that I became Labor leader in 2019. If you look at the work that we've done, take our emissions program. We did that, stood up at a press conference with the Business Council of Australia, the Australian Industry Group, ACCI, conservation groups and the ACTU. That's always been my model. I think that Australia works better when we engage people across business, unions, as well as civil society. The CFMEU was let rip under the former government. My government intervened to put it into administration when it was appropriate. My government has always sought, and I've always sought and built a really strong relationship with business. If you look at my period in public life, probably one of the things I'm most proud of is the creation of Infrastructure Australia. My previous incumbents as a minister, that involved people from the private sector, chaired by Sir Rod Eddington, a News Corp board member internationally, was the chair, as well as Ken Henry and Heather Ridout and people in industry working out how do you change the way the infrastructure investment happens so that it drives productivity going forward. If you look at, so that was in that portfolio. In regional development, I set up Regional Development Australia. That involved regional bodies looking at regional economic growth, involved the private sector there. The Australian Council of Local Government I established, that brought together for the first time the Commonwealth and every mayor around the country in a 2-day forum. Not all the cabinet ministers were wrapped by this idea, but it was really positive as well. It's something that has characterised all of my political involvement since I've had the opportunity to be a minister in 2007 under Rudd and Gillard, but as Prime Minister as well. And that's why I always reach out to forums. I've participated in this one now, I think, well, at least 3 years in a row, and participate regularly across the board. I think that's how you get change, by engaging with people, including, that doesn't mean you always have to agree, but if you shut down the debate before you've actually got people in the room. So the productivity roundtable, for example, I'll give you a bit of a preview. You know, I'll start off, give a spiel, if you like, an opening of what potentially people might want to discuss, but we won't say you can't get in the room if you're going to raise issues or you can't put forward ideas. It's the opposite. And it costs nothing. The worst that can happen is that people develop relationships because they've spent a couple of days together. I'll host people at the lodge on one of the evenings as well. And so we've got that worked out. But we want people to genuinely have a stake. There's I think it was Confucius, someone will point it out, no doubt if it's wrong, who said, if you think you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. Now, I don't think I'm the smartest one in the room. In the country, I happen to have a responsibility as Prime Minister, and part of that is mobilising the capacity of people in this room and people who watch Sky and people who watch whatever and read whatever publication to say, okay, if you've got a good idea, put it forward, we'll give it consideration.
Great, not like Malcolm Turnbull then. All right, Anthony Albanese, thank you, Prime Minister, and please thank the Prime Minister for his time.
Thanks, mate.